Well, despite a little technical difficulty, I think we finally just got live. Howie Chaney, do you have us online?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I can hear you fine.
All right. I finally figured it out. Coach Bell, can you hear us fine?
I got you.
All right. Everybody, welcome to an off the record. It's been a little bit hard to get it. We couldn't get everybody's video lined up. My video is still not working correctly. But Howie, we got a real special guest tonight, someone you knew a long time. And I was trying to tell Coach earlier, I'm so old, I called his high school games on WFPA. So I think I'm older than everybody. But introduce us to Coach if you can. Howie?
Yeah, tonight we got a special guest with us tonight. Someone I've known for a long time. Played ball against them. Our families have known each other for years and years. I think they came over on the Mayflower together. That's how long we've known each other's families. But we got Scottsboro head coach Jason Bell. Coach Bell, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. And Howie, the way you were explaining it now, you're putting us a lot older than we actually are. So we're still kind of young, but I do appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, Coach, we're sorry about the technical difficulties, but you're always welcome here. We're really trying to grow something with that area of Northeast Alabama and the coaching fraternity. But let's start right there. That's where you've cut your teeth in that area. I was telling you before you got on the air. My first radio job out of college was at WFPA in Fort Payne, and I called many of a county tournament up there at the old Civic Center. Some that you played in, some that Howie played in. That's a great area to grow up and be involved in sports.
It is. I think it's really important to the people of every school on Sand Mountain, and I think the Sand Mountain tournament, as a matter of fact, is going on right now, and I'm sure the gym is packed at North Sand Mountain. But basketball, football, baseball, and softball has really come along in the last few years. But people in this area just love sports, and it's a great place to grow up.
Coach, steal your thunder a little bit. You played for kind of a religion at Plainview. Did Coach Mitchell try to? Is that where you started wanting to be a coach, or when did you start wanting to coach?
Well, he was probably one of the biggest influences, if not the biggest influence on me wanting to be a coach. Just the way I just watched him from the time that I came into the program, even as a seventh grader. Just watched how he handled himself and how he handled his business and how he handled the program, and I just saw the impact that he had on not just me, but just hundreds of young men and women. But just how he went about just meticulously planning practices and how he scouted. And I just thought, I'd always loved sports, basketball in particular, and I just thought that's something that I would really love to do as I got older. And he certainly was, like I said, probably the biggest influence on me wanting to be a coach. And I'm, forever indebted to him for just kind of showing me the way.
I will tell you, the greatest post-game interview in my career is Coach Mitchell, win or lose. He was going to 100% tell you how the game went. So,
well, that's true. I mean, we heard a lot of that in the locker room at halftime and after the games, and he would shoot straight with us, and whether we were winning or losing, he didn't care to tell us what was on his mind. And I think that's why one reason he was so well respected is because he didn't sugarcoat it. He told it like it was, and that's how you got to be. I mean, everybody can see through. If you're just blowing smoke, everybody knows it. But he would shoot you straight, and is well respected and regarded for that.
Howie, I'll let you pick up there now. You two played against each other in high school, I believe, if my timing is right.
Yeah, we did. Jason was a year or two younger than I am, but he was one of those super athletes that basically came along, and if I ain't mistaken, he was up on the varsity at the eighth or ninth grade. How bad off am I, Jason?
Well, we did play against. I graduated in '94, so we battled, and I was on the varsity in the 10th grade, and us in Sylvania, we had obviously a big rival back then. and it was always a tough game, nip and tuck, and they were always up for us. We were always up for them. And, I mean, it was a battle.
Coach,
I know, like I said, I wasn't dating us being older than what we really are, but our families have known each other for years. Being from the kind of the Blake community over there, with some of your kin folks and my kin folks, and even till today, my uncle Jim will go to a lot of the games with your dad to watch you coach.
That's right. I just they actually came probably just a couple of weeks back to watch us, and Jimmy Ray and my dad, they were high school friends, and so they've been going to ball games together for goodness, probably 50 or 60 years together, and just kind of what we were talking about at the first when we first come on air about just the area in general being sports nuts, and those two guys certainly fit the bill.
If they're at a game, they're sitting side by side, and if they're at the Coliseum, they're sitting on the top steps when you first go in on the Plainview home side.
Hey, from 1981 until about 2012, I think my dad probably didn't miss you could probably count the games he missed on one hand. And he and Jimmy Ray were always sitting on that top step. And, no telling how many people I run into will say, every time I go in the Civic Center, I'll look up there just to see if your dad's still sitting on that top step. But, he's getting older now, and he don't get to get out as much as he used to. But when he does, Jimmy Ray is usually with him.
Coach, that's great stories. It's amazing. Sports, you make friends, you make family. It almost becomes a second family. But let's talk a little bit about as you went away, as you graduated high school. When did teaching become? I mean, are you a coach that wanted to be a teacher, or a teacher that wanted to be a coach?
Well, I was a pretty good student in high school, and I took my studies seriously, and I loved biology. And I got to thinking, as I was probably 7th, 8th, 9th grade, what could I do to keep biology in my life as well as sports? And I was either going to be a dentist or I was going to be a coach. And I guess I chased the love of sports rather than money, I guess you could say. But really, I just, I teach anatomy still, and I just love that. I love being around kids. I think they help keep me feeling young. I don't know about whether keeping me young, but they do keep me feeling young, and just always wanted to coach basketball, and that was just something that kind of worked out.
It's awesome. And I don't know about you, but I can't imagine keeping my hands in other people's mouth all day. So I think that's a win, Coach. But
I think so.
When you first graduated college, one of your first jobs was at Fort Payne, just across the river, just across the mountain, and Scottsboro's biggest rival. Does that bring a unique perspective to you that you've sat on both of those benches?
Well, I mean, I just tell the people at Scottsboro when we play Fort Payne in any sport, and the top cat trophy is always brought up, or being the top cat. But I just tell the people that the people at Fort Payne are just like the people at Scottsboro. I mean, they're good as gold, and
Amen.
I spent 4 years at Fort Payne, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. I would honestly, I could see myself having taught there for 30 years, but I did get married after 4 years and moved to Tuscaloosa, and but the friendships that I made at Fort Payne, I still talk to those people and stay in touch with them, and thank the world of all of them. They were good to me, great to me, and it was four great years in my career.
That is a wonderful perspective. Then you moved to Tuscaloosa. Now, being a Tennessee graduate, that was the first move I ever made. After graduating the University of Tennessee, I moved to Northport. I wasn't the most popular person down there, so I'm going to think it was a little better for you.
Well, not really, because I'm a Georgia fan, and
there you go.
I wore my Georgia stuff proudly for the 5 years I was there. But in all honesty, when I moved there, my plan was to try to find an assistant's job. I knew I was only going to be there for 5 years because my wife had 5 years more to go in her schooling, and she had kind of already had a job lined up back home. So I knew I was going to be there for 5 years. So I took a job at a school that had just it was brand new. Northridge High School had just opened. They had split Central High School into 3 different schools: Central, Northridge, and Paul Bryant. And I was fortunate enough to get hired on as the JV coach and varsity assistant at Northridge. And then after 2 years, the coach left. He and his wife moved to Pennsylvania. She had gotten a really good job. And so then I was fortunate enough to have his endorsement, and I got the head coaching job there for 3 years before we moved back. And it just, again, just like Fort Payne, it was a great 5 years. I think tremendous experience. I learned a lot, not just about X's and O's, but how to handle people, how to deal with people, and it was just a tremendous learning experience for me.
That's a awful big time environment for your first coaching job. I think that's a 6A school or a 5A school. Was that a little intimidating early on?
Well, it wasn't, because I had been an assistant there for 2 years, and I had really gotten close to those kids, and it was a lot of the same ones that I had coached on JV, and we had a lot of success. So when I got the head coaching job, I was still in my 20s, and I knew it was a 6A school, and that was before there were 7 classifications. So it was one of the biggest schools in the state, and I took a lot of. First of all, I was honored and privileged to have been chosen to be the head coach, the second head coach in the history of the school, and so quickly after the school had started. But we went into it. I had young assistants, and we knew what we were getting into, and we worked our tails off, and our kids just bought into what we were trying to get them to do, and it was just an awesome experience. Just, our first team, I think we won 6 games and beat the same team 3 times. So, but from there, over the course of those 3 years, we added 7 wins every year. We went from 6 wins to 13 wins to 20 wins our last year there, and just felt like we were doing it the right way through hard work. Had great kids, and kind of started building the program, and just great memories.
And I know it had to be hard for you to leave Northridge, but home called for you, and it was time for you to come back to Plainview. How was that experience, and how did it feel to be able to come back and be an alumni and be the head coach?
Well, I mean, it was great. Like I said, I knew I was only going to be in Tuscaloosa for 5 years. At about year 4 or 5, I was starting to kind of look around and see what might be open, and things happened one way or the other, one reason or another. Things happened, and I was fortunate enough to get the head coaching job at Plainview. And when I got it, to be honest, I didn't see myself ever leaving there. I thought I would be there for 20, 25, even 30 years. And, we went in there, and great kids, and, we worked our tails off. It didn't work out on the basketball side, but as far as teaching, I couldn't have asked for a better place to be for 5 years. Again, reconnected with some old friends, made some new friends, got to teach some kids of classmates and, people that I had known my entire life. And, but from the basketball standpoint, we weren't able to get the program turned around in the direction that I was hoping we would. And after 5 years, I just felt like that, it would be best for me to step aside and let somebody else come in there. Which that's when Coach Robbie Coker got hired, and it goes without saying that he has done a tremendous job of getting the program not only turned around, but it's one of the most respected programs in the state. And I couldn't be any prouder of him or those kids, and I root for them still today.
You're talking about rooting for them and all that. That's great. Let's go back to that for a second. And there was a quote. Let me read this quote and see if you had anything to do with this. 32 minutes of bail. Does that bring back any memories?
Well, I'll tell you, a kid from Northridge came up with that, and they were trying to come up with a slogan for T-shirts in the student section when I was there, and he came up with that, and it just kind of stuck and followed me, I guess, to there, and I thought it was kind of catchy. Obviously, it's like you saw the Arkansas Razorback theme from the, I guess, early 90s, mid-90s when Nolan Richardson was there. But a kid from Northridge actually coined that.
I didn't know that. I remember seeing all the shirts from Plainview saying 32 minutes of bell, and I thought Plainview had came up with that. So, but hey, it was catchy. I liked it.
It was catchy. We just kind of, I don't know, we just kind of burned out. We never did really get 32 minutes of it going, and that's one of my biggest regrets professionally is that I couldn't get it going like everybody wanted it to, like I wanted it to, like the community did. And so I felt, that being my alma mater, my home school, I just, I felt like I let a lot of folks down. But it was definitely a learning experience. I think it's made me a better coach now to having gone through that. And even though we didn't win a whole lot of games, I had tremendous support there. And, it was 5 years that I wouldn't trade.
Coach, do you think, and I still cover in Tennessee a 3A school, and I've always been involved in 1A, 2A, 3A schools. Do you think it's a different set of challenge trying to build a 3A team than a team that's maybe a 5 or 6A, just because you have so many more bodies, or is it the same no matter the size of the school?
Well, I think in football, it's a big difference. But to me, in basketball, and I tell this to our kids all the time when we're playing smaller schools, you can't overlook anybody. In basketball, it's 5-on-5. And the biggest difference is to me, in a bigger school and a smaller school is a larger school might be a little deeper on the bench, but you can look at the NCAA tournament. There's upsets every year. A 12 seed always beats a 5 seed, and lately 15s are beating 2s. 16 ones, and so you really can't go by the size of the school. I think it's basketball is basketball, and whether you're at a 7A or a 1A, I mean it's the same thing, same principle. You just might not have quite as many on your bench that can really give you good minutes at a smaller school, and again, that's not always the case there.
Coach, and we'll get to Scottsboro here in just a minute, but in your growth after your Plainview experience, you chose to go back to an assistant job. Do you think that was after you had success as a head coach, you had a struggle as a head coach, then going back to the assistant level, was that a time that you could uniquely evaluate what you did as a head coach?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I've tried to, every coach that I've worked for, from Anthony Reed at Fort Payne to Randall at Northridge to Kenny Hill at Scottsboro, I've tried to learn, absorb, and just pick their brains and see how they did stuff. And certainly, I was an assistant for 7 years at Scottsboro. And honestly, I never thought that I wanted to be a head coach again. But those 7 years were some of the best years of my professional career, because as an assistant, and Coach Kenny Hill, he was awesome to work with, to work for. He let me coach, but I didn't have to take it home. I didn't have to deal with any of the headaches that sometimes can come along with being a head coach. So for 7 years, I just really got to focus on the basketball side of it, not fundraising, not the paperwork, not dealing with parents, not dealing with issues. So it was a great 7 years, and 7 years that I did get to spend and really evaluate how I did stuff, why I did stuff, and and just watch and see how Coach Hill handled certain situations. So it was a great 7 years for me to just sit back and try to really reflect and try to improve professionally.
When that job did come open at Scottsboro after 7 years of sitting on the bench, was it an instant, I want this job, or was it, I need to go home, need to think about this, need to talk to the wife, did you check all the boxes before you said, yeah, I want to be a head coach again?
Definitely. There was a lot of discussion, and no, to answer your first question, it was not an instant thing. A lot of people don't know this, but I had actually resigned from my assistant coaching spot about a month before Coach Hill resigned to take the girls' job at Guntersville. So, and the reason for that, to make a long story short, my wife had spent our entire marriage, and even when we were dating, supporting me. And she had recently bought another business, and she was about to build a building and put two businesses under one roof. And we've got two kids. One's a first grader, one's a seventh grader. And I just felt like it was time for me to kind of step aside and support her and be there for her so that she could really lessen the stress that she was about to go through. And so I had no, really, I was at peace with the decision once I resigned to step away from basketball, maybe just coach my kids in rec leagues. And I was at peace with that. And it was really Mandy, my wife, who one night said, look, she said, I've always felt like and thought that this is where you were going to end up. She said, I just think it's where God wants you. And once she told me that, then I started to, pursue the job, and it worked out. And I did. I had a lot of support, a lot of people pulling for me, and it's so far it seemed to have worked out. And, it's certainly God's timing and God's plan.
Well, listening to your story in my head, the first thing I said was, that was a God plan. But that's amazing, Coach. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Howie, you got a follow up to that?
Yeah, you take over for Scottsboro, and Coach Hill, he resigns and moves on. He had a good run there at Scottsboro, but kind of went down just a hair or two, before he left. But you come in, you take over the team. I think it was last year, and a lot of people didn't have outside of your team didn't have a lot of expectations, but yet you proved them all wrong.
Well, for 7 years, we had been Coach Hill. To back up, Coach Hill really made Scottsboro basketball relevant again. He came in, he did a great job. And to be his assistant there, I got to know the kids got to know me. I think we trusted them. And we just had an exceptional group last year. We had 7 seniors. And when I did get hired, they bought in from day one on the changes that we were going to make. We were going to, try to play a little more up-tempo, press more. And they bought into it, and everything just kind of worked out. It was almost like a perfect storm for us. We caught a lot of teams off guard. Obviously, I don't know how many people from Scottsboro really expected the run we made last year. That was a goal, and that's certainly something that we worked every day in practice to do. But, to say before the year that we knew that we saw ourselves going to Birmingham, I don't think anybody could really honestly say that, but it was a perfect storm. And, and when you got good kids that buy in, and the biggest thing is they play so hard, and that's probably the most compliments that we have received over the last 2 years is how hard our kids play. And that's nothing to do with me. That's nothing to do with coach. And that's just those kids, doing everything they can to try to win. And it makes it easy to coach kids like that.
I saw you the other night at the game, 5 Scottsboro game, and I came up to you before the game, and I jokingly said you had more assistants than Kirby Smart. Give a little recognition to those assistants that are helping you out now, because you said that in the past you didn't have any assistants, so this has been a big blessing for you.
Well, in the past at Plainview, my assistants were all volunteers, and they were great. And but just certain times, they had other jobs outside the school, so they were there when they could be. And and those guys were great. They really were. I am thankful, grateful, and indebted to those guys for just wanting to help after their regular jobs, were over. But at Scottsboro, we've got Tristan Sexton is a volunteer assistant. He works on the Arsenal in Huntsville, and he coaches our freshman team. Tavares Tolliver played there. He actually was a junior when we first got to Scottsboro. He played 4 years of college basketball. He coaches our JV team. Derek Borum, who is a Scottsboro graduate, is my assistant, varsity assistant. And Caleb Haynes, who is a section graduate, who spent some time at Sylvania when his dad was there. He coaches. Last year, he kind of just volunteered to help out with the varsity. This year, he took over our 7th grade program and did a good job. But those guys are tremendous. They're not only are they knowledgeable about the game, and each one of them brings just a specific and unique just set of skills to practice. And they're awesome. They care about it. They're invested in it, and you can tell. And we try to push our kids. We try to have fun. And I've always said, when I'm the calm one, then we're having a good time. And in the course of a game, we try to have fun, but I don't think I've ever been the calm one on a coaching staff. I'm usually the loudest one or the most boisterous or whatever you want to say, but sometimes I have to settle our assistant coaches down when things get going, but I wouldn't have it any other way, and I am very fortunate to have these guys as assistants.
Coach, does your assistants, on game day, does each assistant have an area that he's responsible for? Subs, minutes, defense, offense, or is everybody looking with the same set of eyes?
Well, we all look at different things, and it's not specifically laid out, but it's just kind of like Coach Borum really focuses on the defensive end. Coach Tolliver, Coach Haynes really pay attention to who's taking shots and where they're getting them from. And then Coach Sexton is kind of looking at who's rebounding, who's in rebounding position. And those guys just, again, they're knowledgeable on basketball. They understand what we're trying to do. And, I bounce ideas off them all the time. And I know they get tired of me asking them questions through the game. Do y'all want to do this, do this, do this? But, I appreciate guys that, and every once in a while I'll send them a text and say, look, you guys need to tell me what I need to do differently, because I'm trying to, every year, after every game, day to day, I'm trying to evaluate to try to get better. And they give me really good feedback, and they're honest with me. And I appreciate that more than those guys will ever know.
That's awesome. Coach, let's talk about those 7 seniors last year before we get into this year's team. That was kind of a magical run y'all went on to the semifinals, losing I believe you lost to Spanish Fort in the semis, beat Clay Charville in the quarters. What a run, and you've got to have great senior leadership to make that kind of run.
Well, we did, and the biggest thing I can say about those seniors, and this is, to me, the success we had last year was awesome, unforgettable, just awesome. But to me, above all, what they did on the basketball court, all 7 of them received some type of scholarship to a college. And that just tells you what kind of people they were, what kind of students they were, and really what kind of leaders they were. We have one that's at the Naval Academy, and that's to get appointed, to any of the service academies is a tremendous honor. He got accepted into to West Point for Army, but he chose to go to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. We've got 3 guys, I think, at Auburn getting on scholarship. We got a couple of guys at JSU, and then we got 1 guy at Northeast. So those 7 seniors, I mean, it was fun coaching them. It was fun just to being around those guys and seeing how hard they work and how just trusting they were, how unselfish they were. And our kids on this year's team saw that. And, so there's not a selfish bone in any of our players' body, and I credit that to the 7 seniors from last year.
So, Coach, that brings us to this year. Let's start. What was your expectations coming off a great year last year, headed to this year? And it's a different environment. Last year we had a lot of we got COVID issues still, but last year we were playing in empty gyms practically at one point. What was the expectation, and how did you translate that senior class into your rest of your team?
Well, to be honest with you, we had 7 seniors. 3 of them started, and then another one was our 6th man. So 4 of those guys played a lot of minutes and filled a lot of roles for us. And so, June is a big month for high school basketball. Obviously, there's a lot of play dates, and people now you can pretty much play as much as you want to in any 3 weeks during June. So we try to play going into that. On paper, it looked like this year would be a rebuilding year for us. We lost our leading scorer, we lost our leading rebounder, we lost our point guard who handled the ball, who was a one-man press break by himself. So on paper, it looked like a rebuilding year. But once we got into the summer and started playing in June, we played really well. And we shot the ball well. And I started talking to my assistants like, people are thinking this is going to be a rebuilding year, but the way we played in June, it doesn't have to be a rebuilding year. So, I don't know if that really changed our approach or anything like that, but it let me know these guys can play. Again, a really good summer. We beat some bigger schools. We beat some teams that really before June, I didn't know if we could compete with. But, I think that gave everybody confidence in going into it, and we've gotten off to a good start. The last couple of weeks, the flu has hit us, but I think every school in North Alabama can say that the flu has hit them. But we've gotten off to a good start. If we can just keep the momentum going into the second half of the year and on into the area tournament, I feel like we've got a shot.
You're coming off of the Cherokee County, I guess, Christmas Classic. I don't know exact terminology. And every score that I saw, I think you won the tournament, didn't you?
Well, it wasn't really it wasn't a bracket tournament. I think COVID last year and this year has gotten a lot of schools away from just doing brackets because it's like a predetermined schedule. It's not really a round robin because there's more teams in it than you could possibly play. But we did go 3-0. We beat Cherokee County, Spring Garden, and Sandrock, and with 3 quality opponents. But, just going over there and playing teams that we don't normally see, don't normally play, I think was good for us to get away from our little area. But, it was hopefully, again, going 3-0 in that tournament will hopefully spark us and give us the momentum and confidence needed to as we head into the second half of the season and the second part of area play.
Yeah, area plays coming up. Like I said, after Christmas, first of the year, that's when the area tournament really, or the area schedule kicks in, and that's when the season kind of really starts. To me, the first part before Christmas is kind of like a preseason type deal. But now your schedule, this is when, to me, the season starts.
Well, that's right. Well, the way our schedule is, we've already played 3 area games, and we were able to win both of them at home against Arab and Fort Payne, and we go over to Buckhorn, and we're up by 14 in the middle of the fourth quarter, and we just kind of let it slip away, and that one still hurts. It's still hard to kind of swallow that. We end up losing by 1. So we're 2-1 in the area. We were 2-1 in the area through 3 games last year, so we can we understand how important it is to go and attack these last 3 area games once they start back. And we're going to have to go steal a couple on the road and hope we can get Buckhorn at home. And if we can't get help, we got to hope for a coin flip to go our way. But the good thing about basketball is that area tournament is an equalizer, and it doesn't matter if you're 30-0 or 0-30. All you got to do is win that first night of the area tournament, and you're still playing, and everybody else that loses is going home.
Coach, I did look at your schedule, and I saw that both years you had played Buckhorn very early in the year. And is that by design? Because Buckhorn traditionally, pretty good basketball schools play that early in the year. You got to know what you got after you go over to Buckhorn early in the year.
That's right, and I don't know if it's by design or just by out of necessity. We got to get the team scheduled, and that's just kind of how it fell. And we've played Buckhorn. We played them 3 times last year and 1 time this year. And if I'm not mistaken, all 4 games have been decided by a total of 5 points.
Yeah.
So it's a 1-point game here, 1-point game there, and they're good. They're good. They had a great coach last year, a Hall of Fame coach. They've got another Hall of Fame coach that replaced him this year. So it's it's a tough place to play and a tough group to play against.
Well, I'm going to ask a question that myself I want to know about. Nobody else probably cares about, but I'm curious about. Do you have any pregame rituals that you go through?
Well, not really necessarily pregame rituals. I'm a former baseball player, so baseball players tend to be superstitious. So I do have my superstitions. I want stuff done roughly at the same time before every game. Like I want our kids to go to the locker room at as soon as halftime of the girls' game ends, I want them to be dressed when the fourth quarter starts, so that when I get in there, I can talk to them and ready to go. I don't want to wait on them. So from that standpoint, that's really all. I mean, there's nothing that I try to do myself as far as any pregame ritual, but just the same kind of, I guess you could say, the schedule. It's following a set schedule, and I don't really like it to ever be off.
That's
then my follow-up question would be, you probably do have a superstitious thing that you do before. You're just not going to let us know what it is.
Hey, Howie, could you repeat that, please?
I said my follow-up question is, you really do have a superstition or something that you do, but you just don't want us to know what it is.
No, I mean, if I did, I promise you I'd tell you. But I'm just, I'm kind of set in my ways. I like just to follow a set schedule, and not even in basketball. I'm just like that. I like to get in a routine. If my routine ever gets thrown off, it kind of throws me for a loop, and it takes me a while to readjust. So just kind of following the same routine.
Coach, in the last few minutes, and we'll get you out of here. Appreciate your time, and let's talk about some of the kids on this year's team. And I always want to ask this question: who is the most improved player to this point on your team?
Well, honestly, you could see a different player every night. I mean, the other night in our last game in that Cherokee Invitational, we had several out with an injury, flu. So we played 3 JV kids a lot, and those guys, which we practice together, they do the same thing we do, and those guys stepped in and played. All 3 of them scored points for us, and so it's our kids. To choose one that's the most improved, I mean, would be almost impossible, and I'm not just saying that to keep from singling one out, but they really have. They've all improved, in one way or the other.
That's a great answer, Coach. And also, do you how do you link all the programs together? I know you have control of the junior varsity program, but does the junior high coach and you work together to start some kind of a process where the kids, when they get to high school, kind of know what's going to happen, or have you reached that point yet?
No, we certainly do that. There's certain things that I want them to do, and outside of those things, I want them to have freedom to kind of coach how they want to. My hope is that all of those guys want to be head coaches one day, and I was fortunate enough to, when I started out in junior high, that the varsity coach, Anthony Reed, allowed me to have freedom to do kind of how I wanted to do it, and I think you learn a lot like that. And you got to let each coach kind of coach to his personality. But there are certain things in the 7th grade that I want them to be able to do, and then it's a progression. Once they get in the 8th grade, there's certain other things I want them to do, and then once they get in the 9th grade, they pretty much can fit right in, just like with us having to pull 3 JV kids up to play in a varsity game, and it wasn't a big deal to them. They practice with us. They understand. They might not do quite as much as we do, but we know what they know, and we can kind of adjust to the personnel that we have in the game. But it's certainly a progression once they get in 7th grade to as they move on up through the program, and by the time they get to us, we hopefully all we have to do is kind of fine tune some stuff.
Coach, I follow you on social media. We're friends on Facebook. Like I said, we've been friends for years and everything. And I see a lot of posts on there about you and your team getting together and doing different things together. That, to me, that's huge. To me, it feels like a lot of coaches don't do that enough. Could you tell us a little bit of detail on how you came about doing this stuff?
Well, to me, I just think it's important for those players to understand that I care about them regardless of basketball. I want those guys to be successful, and not only me, but our whole coaching staff, that we're invested in these kids, whether they're winning 25 or losing 25. We want them to be successful. We want them to know that we love them, and we want to be able to help them in any in any avenue that they try to pursue in any way we can. And I think they know that, but I think it's just good, anytime we can get together away from basketball, because obviously, you played, and when you're at practice, the coach is coaching. But away from it, you kind of get to know the coach a little bit more. It's a little bit more personal. And the same way with the players. We get to know the players on a whole different level when we're not in practice. And I just think that's important. I always tell, even students in my class, I always tell them, if you sit in here in my class for 18 weeks and all I know about you is your name, that I have failed you. So we just try to get to know the kids, let them get to know us. And I just think that's important to, is to build the trust.
That's huge. We need more Coach Bells out there that cares about the kids on a personal level instead of just being, hey, what can you do for me to help my sports program win?
Well, I think there's a lot of guys out there that are like that. I think more now than ever, and it's just important to me that the kids understand that I'm not gonna try to win games at their expense and for to cut corners, to cheat, or whatever like that. I mean, we're gonna win some, we're gonna learn some, but we're gonna do it the right way, and we're gonna love the kids no matter what.
Coach, we'd be remiss if we didn't ask about the second set of assistants, which is the closest set of assistants. Any successful coach has got to have a good home, good family, good kids. What part does your family play in your coaching success?
Oh, 100% of anything that I have success at is my family. I told you earlier that when the job came open, I had it wasn't immediate that like, oh yeah, I want it, I'm gonna go after it, until my wife told me that she thought that she felt like that's where the good Lord wanted us, and she felt like that's where I needed to be. I mean, she's very supportive, and I couldn't ask for a better wife as far as that. Being a coach's wife is a tough job.
Amen.
And that's like her fifth job. She works a lot harder than I do, and and I see how hard she works, and it's easy for me to go and work. And my kids are awesome. They're right there at every game. And my littlest one, he's in the first grade, Finn. He sits on the bench with us, or right beside the bench if there's not enough chairs. And I think, honestly, he's probably smarter than I am. We'll have adult conversations about the game after it's over. He'll tell me what I should have done differently. He'll tell me what plays we should have called. And he's smart. And my seventh grade son, he's right there, and he loves it. But I have an awesome support system for sure, and I mean, I'm lucky in that regard because all three of them support me 100%.
Well, how old do you think Finn will be before he gets the head coaching job at Georgia?
Hey, I don't know. He could probably be the head coach at Scottsboro at 7 years old right now, but I don't know. Right now, he's really into it, and I hope that doesn't change. And he loves it. He loves the kids on our team. We were in the laundry room today, and every time I'd pull a jersey out of the dryer, he'd tell me whose it was. So he knows those kids like the back of his hand, and they love him too. And just to give you an example of what kind of kids we have. Saturday morning, Finn had a game at a rec game, and a lot of my players came and watched him, and that's after a late Friday night game. They showed up to support him, and that made Finn's day, and it certainly made an impact on my wife and myself. We just got great kids to show up on a Saturday morning to watch the coach's son play.
That's awesome.
You kind of took the question right out of my mouth because I was going to ask you about that. I saw the picture on Facebook where he was surrounded by all your players and all that. So I'll move on to my next question or comment. And your wife, you said she got businesses and all that. Would you like to plug them, put them over, just to, get some recognition out there for that?
Absolutely. She owns Riverbend Family Medicine in Scottsboro. And then the business that it's been 3 years now, so I don't really guess it's recent, but is an aesthetics business, Bell Aesthetics in Scottsboro. So this time of year, be a great plug for her, I guess. All the guys that if you're needing the last second Christmas gift, get in touch and we can get some gift certificates set up. But she works hard. She does a great job in both of her businesses. And then, like I said, support not only me, but our entire team. She loves those kids just as much as I do and just as much as we love her all. Again, blessed to have her.
Coach, Howie, I'll let you take the last round of questions. This is my last question for the night. First off, thank you for the time. I appreciate the time. Anything we can do? Is there anything going on at the school now that you want to? We fundraising now, or are we out of season for fundraising?
Well, we really have, is on the basketball side of it, we really have one major fundraiser a year, and it's in October, where we sell tickets to win $10,000. And really, when we do a good job at that really sustains us for the entire season. But I will mention this: we are hosting a tournament Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the Don Webb Classic. This is the third annual Don Webb Classic. And the games will start at 1 o'clock, and there'll be one freshman game, 2 JV games, and 2 varsity boys games every day, Monday through Wednesday of next week.
Wow, that's after being cooped up with everybody and listening to Christmas toys all day. That might be some fun to get out and watch a little high school basketball for sure.
Absolutely. So, I know there's other tournaments around, but if you're around the Scottsboro area, come out. Support the Wildcats.
And Coach, go ahead and tell us. I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead and tell us who's going to be playing in that tournament.
Well, on the varsity side, we have 4 teams at Scottsboro, East Limestone, VAR, and Cleveland High School. So we're just going to kind of do a round robin. And then on the JV side, it's Scottsboro, East Limestone, Madison Academy, and the 4th team is escaping me right now. I apologize. And on the freshman side, we only have 3 freshman teams. So it's North Jackson, Madison County, and Scottsboro. The other JV team is Madison Academy. That's the one I don't think I said earlier.
Yeah.
Well, you're 6A right now. You're going back to 5A next year. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it'll be a good move for our, not just basketball, but our entire athletic, our teams. Every team we have, boys side, girls side. We really don't have 6A athletes, and I think it'll help us to go back to 5A, which I think is where we probably should have been the whole time. But and I don't mean that as a slight to anybody. I don't mean to make it sound like it's going to be easy, because there's as many good 5A teams as there are 6A teams. And whether it's baseball or basketball or softball or soccer, we're going to have to, we got to be prepared and bring it every night to compete, no matter what classification we're in.
Coach, sometimes it's hard to figure out those classifications until they release them. I sat here the other night and tried to figure out Tennessee's new classifications, and I got about half the schools wrong anyway. So that's a tough one.
It is, and even after they release them, I've noticed in the paper the last couple of days they've moved a couple of the private schools up and down again. So I don't trust that they're set right now. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, Coach, you can't see me, but I'm getting up in my chair. I'm getting ready to ask the question of the night. I want a prediction for the Georgia-Michigan game coming up New Year's Eve.
Hey, I just hope Georgia wins by 1 point. That's it. I'm not going to make a prediction, but I just hope if Georgia's focused and shows up, I think that they'll win. And hopefully, I guess, I don't know if I should want this or hope for it or not, but another rematch with Alabama for the national championship. We shall see.
Coach, we got another show on Wednesday night with me and a bunch of guys, and we call it Ridiculous Speculation because we do a lot of that. And I think we've had more talk about that Georgia-Michigan game. It really, I think everybody feels the same way. Georgia ought to win, but Michigan, they're on such a run, and there's some truth to a team that just is on a run that forgets how to lose and just wins.
You're exactly right. It doesn't matter what level or what sport it is. Momentum is a dangerous thing. And certainly Michigan has it, but if you look at it, who's supposed to win or who should win on paper, then Georgia would be the SEC champions and undefeated. That Alabama showed up and played as well as they've played all year. And you got to show up. I mean, it doesn't matter what you got on paper. You got to show up, and you got to get it done on the field. So hopefully the Dogs bounce back.
And
Well,
could that be a motivation for your team just to bring that game up, saying, "Hey guys, if you don't show up and play, this is what could happen"?
Absolutely. Anything you can use like that for motivation is a good tool to have.
never thought of that, but that, no matter the sport, that really was an example of everybody in the world didn't think a team could get it done. They got it done. So
That's
good,
right.
good point. Good point. Coach, we hope to have you back on again. Maybe we can get you next October before the fundraiser or after the season. But once we have you on once, we don't ever let you get away from us. You become part of the family. We just keep bringing you back and bringing you back. So just get ready for us to call again.
Well, anytime, and I certainly appreciate you guys having me on and what you guys are doing for the high school sports in Northeast Alabama. I think that's big, huge, and anytime you can advocate for the high school kids, I think it's a great thing, and I certainly appreciate you guys.
You're absolutely right, Coach. It's all about those kids, and we appreciate the coaches that take the time, the players, and it's a good kids grow up in gyms and football fields and baseball fields.
Absolutely.
How are you
Coach,
guys?
I appreciate you being on. Like Randall said, you will be back, whether you like it or not. You will be back. Uh, One last thing, do you have anything you want to plug, put over, anything like that? Any social media sites where they could go and follow you or the team and keep up with you?
Well, I mean, just the only really thing that we do, we have a Scottsboro High School basketball page on Facebook. If you would like to follow that, we don't really have a Twitter account. I guess you got to get into some 20s and 30-year-old coaches to get all that stuff. We're kind of old school, and I guess we're lucky just to have a Facebook page.
A very active Facebook page, though. I did my research on that Facebook page today. Great page.
Well, we try to keep it up to date. We got a lot of stuff going on. Got Coach Tavares Tolliver recently got engaged, and we certainly posted that out there so that everybody could congratulate he and his fiancee Jade, and we wish them nothing but the best, of course.
Absolutely. And Coach, again, we thank you for the time. We'll be watching it, and we'd love to get you back here at the end of the year. And won't you make another run down to Birmingham? We might even jump in a little car and drive down there and watch a few games.
Well, I'll hold you to that. If we're fortunate enough to do that again, that sounds awesome, and I look forward to talking to you guys again.
All right, Coach. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Bye-bye.
Howie, another. I dropped my phone. Broke in the middle. My phone broke in the middle of this interview, but Coach was absolutely a trooper. Kept it going, and I'm gonna go now. Charge my phone, Howie.
Good deal, man. I gotta go figure out what's on my truck, and I want to wish everybody out there a Merry Christmas and not a Happy New Year yet, because we'll be back next week. Just don't know with who, but we'll be back next week.
Yeah, and Howie, I know we've got some up. We won't announce, but we've got a couple of special guests coming up. Also, I want to make sure we realize that if you're a coach and run across this and you'd like to come on, talk about your program, please contact us. All the people that enjoy this, give us a like and follow. That's how you make it possible. These coaches, being a high school coach in any sport is a thankless job, and we don't appreciate them enough, Howie. So, like, follow, share. If you want us to come see your program, we'll be happy to do it. For Howie Chaney, how you got any final words?
Like you said, some of the coaches, if anybody wants to, come on and be with us, just let us know. We haven't went out and got all these coaches. Some of these coaches just came to us, so it's not, it's a two-way street. So just let us know, and contact me, contact Randall, whoever, and we'll get you on here, promote your stuff, and that's it.
We get the better part of it. We got all these great relationships. So, for Randall Cunningham, for Howie Chaney, we'll be back next week. And right now, we're off the record.